In this video, I'm going to show you how to automatically add line items to a deal in HubSpot using Zapier. Stay tuned. Hi, my name is Ryan Schweighart, founder of Wholeheart Impact, where I help organizations grow without the growing pains with HubSpot and Zapier. Today's Insight was inspired by a post in the HubSpot community asking for how to add each order from our e-commerce platform as a closed deal in HubSpot to track customer purchase patterns. So today I'll show it in action of how I've done this within Zapier and break down how I did it. By the end of this demo, you will know how to automatically associate multiple line items with a single Zap in Zapier. So we'll hop over into our HubSpot demo account, and we're focused on this closed won stage here. We're going to see that there's no deal here. We're going to have a deal that comes in named something like e-commerce sample deal. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and trigger that automation to run. It should run fairly quick, but I've got uh, the Google Sheets set up here. I don't have an e-commerce platform connected per se, but in theory, you'd have your Shopify account or your Squarespace account or whatever your e-commerce platform is. That will be your trigger step. But for this demo purposes, I'm going to use Google Sheets to just get the information triggered and then allow the Zap to run. And I'll show you how it all works here in a moment. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and update this Google Sheet. And when I do so, it's going to trigger the Zap to run. And so, yeah, we'll give it just a moment to wait for it to go through. This is a instant step within Zapier itself, so it should come through pretty quick. So if we refresh the page here, we should see it come through. And there we go. So if I hop into here, you'll see that we have this services rendered line item here. And we've got the amount here. We'll go ahead and that could be an error in the automation that we need to actually map the quantity. But we've got the unit price that came through, and then the deal amount reflects the total of the line item, in this case, $1,000. So how do we do it? Let's dive into Zapier to break it all down. So we've got a single Zap here. Again, the trigger step is kind of a little less than ideal. In theory, you're going to have it mapped to your e-commerce platform specifically, and you're going to get a lot more information than just the services rendered and the amount that I passed. I also needed to pass a quantity that we could have used later on in the Zap. So you'll get that in your e-commerce platform, and you'll want to make sure to map, that information. But we've got information that's come in from your e-commerce platform as a trigger step. The second step, I went ahead and added as a filter just to make sure that, in our case, we had a services rendered that came through because that's what we're using later on in the Zap to find the product in HubSpot. If you already have, your record IDs for your products in HubSpot mapped within your e-commerce platform, this step may not be required. But again, it's a free task within Zapier, so it's not like you're using up your task usage with this filter step per se. So that's all that I looked for here, is that the product name from the trigger step exists. The third step here is create deal in HubSpot. So we're using the create deal event for the HubSpot app within Zapier. And then for the action itself, I've gone ahead and named it something arbitrary. You can leverage, dynamic stuff from the previous steps to go ahead and map. And you can do some version of, a dynamic name plus hard-coded names. So you can play around with that. If you need to input a date, you can use a formatter step previously and leverage that date in that manner. Go ahead and select the pipeline that you want it to go to. In our use case or instance, we were wanting to maybe go ahead and automatically move that deal to a closed won stage. So that's what stage we're going to put it in upon creation here. And then this fourth step here is to go ahead and create a looping step or create a loop within Zapier. And so we're going to select the looping by Zapier step. And for the event itself, we're going to create a loop from text. Sometimes you have to create a loop from line items. It seems like typically you're going to get it more in a text with a delimiter, such as a comma. And so you may need to play around with whether to actually use line items or text. But in my case, I went ahead and utilized text. And then for the action itself, you want to select either the name that you're going to search for. If you have the HubSpot record ID, you're going to want to go ahead and pass that. And then you can create some sort of arbitrary identifier. I went ahead and selected line items or typed in line items here for the delimiter itself. If we were to have multiple, products in this case, typically that's going to be a comma. It defaults to comma, so you don't really have to do anything here. Trim white space I usually put as true, and then I usually leave the loop iterations from 1 to 500. If you have less than 500, no problem. It'll just loop through the values that are available. And so then you kind of notice this gray outline here that indicates that this box is, everything in this box is part of the looping iteration essentially. And so the first thing that we want to do is find the product in HubSpot. So we've got the find product event selected as our next step. And then we're going to search for product name. And so I went ahead and selected this drop down here and selected name from the drop down. And there we go for product name. And then I've gone ahead and passed the search within here. So really actually what I wanted to do, I got away with it because I only had one line item here, but we want to go ahead and map to our looping output from the previous step. So really what I want to do is go ahead and loop through, in my case, the names or the record IDs if I have the record IDs. And yep, that's what you'd map to here. Then once you find the product, what you're going to want to do is create a line item. So a little nuance within HubSpot, you're going to have products within your product library, but then you're going to associate line items to a deal. So you're going to want to take that product and create a line item from that product. So that's what we're going to do in this next step is go ahead and create a line item using that event type. And then really all that you need to do is get the product ID or the HubSpot record ID from the previous step, and then go ahead and populate other information that you need to here. It's going to pull in whatever information you have as a default, but I did not map the quantity like you saw earlier. And so what I'd want to do is go ahead and leverage the quantity from your trigger step typically, and go ahead and pass that value in this create line item step. Then for the next item, this is the real meat and potatoes of it, where we're going to create the association. So we're going to take that line item that we just created and associate it with the deal in HubSpot that we created earlier in the Zap. So we're going to use a create associations event type here. And then for the task halting strategy, you can select whatever you want to do there, depending on your needs. And then what we want to do is go ahead and grab the line item that we created in the previous step. So you're going to create that record ID as far as the type of the object. In this case, we've just selected the line item. So that's what we'd want to select here from the drop down itself. And then what we want to associate it with is just one other object. And then in this case, it's a deal. So we've got one selected for the number of association types that should be created. And then what we want to associate it with is a deal. So we've got that selected from the dropdown. And then the type of association, more likely than not, you're going to have just this line item to deal. But if you have other association labels set up that you want to go ahead and leverage, you would do so here in this dropdown. And then go ahead and select or map to the deal record ID from the previous step whenever we created it. And then this last step is a little bit more for housekeeping. So what we're going to do is only continue if it's the last loop iteration, because what we want to do is go ahead and update the deal amount in HubSpot. Whenever we create the associations with a line item and a deal, that association happens, but it doesn't necessarily update the deal amount. If you manually update the, associate line items with a deal in HubSpot, whenever you go to save, it's going to ask you, would you like to update the deal amount? And typically you're going to say yes for reporting purposes and that type of thing. In this case, the way we're doing it here, it doesn't update that deal amount. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and manually do that within this automation. So this only continue if is for the last loop iteration when that's true. So there's a value that gets passed. Last loop iteration is true in this case. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and update the deal in HubSpot. And for the event itself, we'll go ahead and select update deal. And then for the action, what we want to do is go ahead and grab the record ID for the deal that we created earlier, and then find the amount. They've got this handy field search option now where I can go ahead and type in amount, and I can map to whatever the total amount is from the trigger step, or you can create some sort of calculation if you need to go about it that way, but that's what we'd want to pass here. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. There's some yeah, obviously different use cases or different tweaks that may need to occur. So let me know if you have any questions or issues, or if you have other similar things that you'd like to see demoed, just reach out to me directly. Otherwise, bye for now.